from those of you who read the article. Sometimes you do difficult things because they're the right thing to do, says it all. The tampering has to be stopped. There are a million other issues to eventually work out, but this was the right thing to do. Anyone who denies that is lying to themselves. From Randall, so the average cost of a 4-year education at a Power 5 school is about $300,000. They also get tutors, nutritionists, workout facilities, private strength coaches, trainers, clothes, TV exposure. But do you think that is worth nothing? And should they be celebrated because they can get more cash? So you think we should get rid of amateur sports altogether? Players moving from one school to another chasing money is great.
I mean, the argument there is that all of those things added up don't equal what a share of the actual revenue would be. And that's what, people on the other side of that specific argument would tell you, is that you've got school presidents making millions of dollars and, universities themselves making tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in some cases. I mean, if you're an athlete in the SEC or the Big Ten, you hear they're signing $1 billion TV deal. Is your $300,000 a sliver of that? You know what I mean? And that's where they're coming from. Not saying it's right or wrong, but that is the stance there.
From Matthew, the breakdown in leadership in college football, something to behold. I feel like there is just a little more direction. People would stop losing their minds about this brave new world. Leadership and direction just are not coming. The big schools should break away, come up with their own rules.
You're at sea, you're on a ship, and there's a storm coming, and the waves are starting to get rocky, and there is no captain to sea. There is nobody, and none of y'all know how to do it. None of y'all are in charge of driving the boat, and so the guy or the people, the body that's supposed to be driving, they've been on a cruise ship like across the other side of the ocean. They not even realized they've been enjoying champagne and all that. They just figured you were fine. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just directionless. Mark Emmert specifically. And please tell me one thing that he did. Well, and tell me anything that this man did during his entire time making all this money to be the head of the NCAA. What did he even do?
Nothing. And look, Miles Brand before him shares a lot of weight in this. And that, look, this track, I remember watching the Fab Five, 30 for 30. One of the Chris Webber's big beef was he's walking by a store and sees a Michigan #2 jersey and goes, how come I don't get that money? Because that's me. A year from now I'll be able to do that. What's the difference? And then the NCAA is like, just because of rules, had they been reasonable at the time and truly capitalistic as it really is now? I mean, it's pure capitalism right now in the NCAA. If they had been, even remotely that at that point, they could have avoided all this by just going, all right, well, you know what, that's reasonable. We didn't really think about that. There's a lot more money coming into this. But the problem is that they had this 1965 mindset in 1992 and in 2002 and 2012. And then in 2021, when the dam finally burst and they're like, well, we can't do anything about it. Well, everybody was telling you for 40 years what was about to happen. And instead of going, okay, let's reach some sort of compromise in this so that we still can direct things in a way that makes it reasonable, you just decided, no, I'm going to stick with it this way. Let's drive into the fire.
Because they were all cashing their big paychecks. Yeah. That's why. And now that their money's threatened, now we spring to action. Mm-hmm. It's not even about the athletes getting money. It's the athletes getting some of the money that they feel should be their money because they have all the money. And that's as much part of the problem. I will say, going back to the other thing about the tuition and books and dorms and clothing and meals and travel and everything else that a lot of athletes at certain schools do get. That's not every athlete. Like, you're not getting that if you're at Tarleton State. You're not getting that maybe even at Texas State most of the time. But yeah, like big top level, Division I, if you will, schools, that's pretty customary. And that's where I was sort of coming from earlier. There is the personal side of this, of just like the life lessons and things like that don't need to be just brushed to the wayside while guys are making money. Guys make money, but let's also have the cultural part of it remaining intact. Maybe that's the word I was looking for earlier. Rather than it just being like, whoever signed up, like, here's our team. I do think there should be some cultural aspects and some growing of young men and growing of young women and all of that. I don't think we just need to throw that to the wayside over dollars. But on that point about, what they do receive, yeah, it's nice. But again, the argument is, well, it's a shell of the billions of dollars that are coming in. But I do think if you're talking about an athlete at, like, I don't know, like I said, like North Texas or something earlier, like maybe they don't have the best, in terms of dispersed, goods and clothing and all the stuff like you get if you're at Tennessee, for example. But that's what bothers me when I start to hear people talk about like slave and indentured slaves and slave labor. It's like, do you even freaking have a clue of like how well treated a lot of these athletes are? Like if you had any, you clearly are nowhere near a big college campus if you think for one single second that they're not treated exceptionally well in most cases, not every case, but in most cases. They
I could go back to when I entered
of.
Tyler Junior College. The football team had even perks back then. Now, nothing compared. That's 50 years ago.
No, let's just not act though like let's not act like they're living on the street and they can't find food. And I'm just saying, like, for the people, and that's probably like 2 people on Twitter who are just trying to cause stuff. But
I think part of that was, a lot of the things that they weren't doing, like they had these really stringent limits on food, and you've got these athletes that need to take in 3,000 calories a day, and then they had the way that they were distributing their food, they'd run out of their food vouchers or stuff by the end of the week.
Yeah.
But they corrected that when that was
a problem.
It was a problem.
Yeah.
But to their credit, they corrected that. And that was partially, they probably corrected it because they said, well, if they can eat now, maybe they will be mad about not getting paid. But
hey, they're human beings. Let's treat them well.
If the NCAA has lost their cojones, basically been cut off, do you feel like at some point, even things like the Reggie Bush name it's been redacted, that it'll be allowed back in? I know that's the minimum, but I'm just.
Well, the argument is that it wasn't legal at the time, but I don't know. I mean, retroactively going back and changing
we
that.
see statues and things like that taken down by things that were legal at the time. People lose their mind over things that were wrong, but they were okay to do back in the day. Not okay to do. That's the wrong way to.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. Though.
Joe Pa's statue can't, and I'm not trying to open up that can of worms and get like angry Penn State guy. Like that was all. I'm not doing that, but like. That's a little bit of a different scenario. That statue coming down, or the Art Briles statue coming down, if there had ever been one, or whatever. If that scenario had played out, that's a little bit.
I wonder
different.
if Reggie Bush will be his name reintroduced into various record books if this NCAA just completely dissolves.
If it's up to USC, of course, they'll have it all over. They'll have him on the sideline standing next to Lincoln Riley with the Heisman in his hands, if that's what it takes. But. The argument is it wasn't legal at the time, but laws change or rules change, and I wouldn't care on it. I don't care. I don't care if it's
in or out. I don't either.
I don't care.
I think they should, just so that we can stop worrying about it and hope for it. The other thing I remember,
who won the Heisman Trophy in 2005? Reggie Bush did. Yeah. Everyone knows that.
I do think this. I remember at the time, like when you hear like, oh, his parents got a couple $1 million for a house, and then I saw the house, I was like, oh, California's got problems. Like $2 million for a house.
That's not great.
I was thinking the house that they put him in was the house he probably lives in now. No, it was not that, and it was a nice house, but like
California as well, man. We were in Oxnard one time driving by like a rocky region, and there was a house up on a hill, which, hey, that's a great location and everything, but it was a dilapidated piece of crap, and it was $1 million house just simply because of where
you're going to have to put $1 million into it.
Hey, remember the baseball bat story you